Luby Thomas, and I'm the Senior Curator for Digital Media and the Cube at QUT. And we're taking you on a bit of a grand adventure, I think would be the right term. So on the iPad camera is Revi. So Revi is taking control of the camera, and I'm speaking to you through my iPhone onto Google Hangouts so that you can hear my voice a little better. So first of all, we thought we would show you the building. And this building, if you look up on the top to the top left-hand side, you can see we've got some solar panel trees up there. So the building generates more electricity than it uses, which is a really good thing to note, because when we go into the building, you're going to see an awful lot of screens. So I'm just going to go forward and into the building. Ellen, have you still got me?
Yes.
Yep, excellent.
It's all going well.
I might have to ask that periodically, because I haven't got any sense of whether you're there or not.
That's okay. We're still here.
Okay, so Revi, you're on the, they're probably more interested in where you're walking. Hopefully she won't walk into a bollard, or else we'll be witnessing an accident. Oh, this is quite a nice juxtaposition. There's the good old whiteboard that we all know and love. Maybe that's the 20th century, and the building represents the 21st century in lots of ways. So this building has been designed to be a really porous environment. It's got all glass walls, all the teaching spaces. I'm broadcasting, so you probably don't want to do that, Michael. So all the teaching spaces are actually known as collaborative learning spaces, and we've really redesigned the way in which students are engaging with information. But I'll talk about that in a minute, as we're actually now into the cube space. So Revi, you're now showing everybody something. So, okay. Do you want to look at that? So this is our smallest, one of our smaller walls, and what you're actually watching at the moment is a digital project that was co-funded with the Australia Council for the Arts Literature Board, and it's a project that's really interested in narrative and how narrative plays an integral part in the idea of self-directed discovery. We can actually facilitate extended engagement, learning experiences in a public space and through a non-text-based experience. So we'll take you around. So you need to watch where you're going with that. I'm a bit worried that she's going to trip over something. So we'll take you around to the main space, and then I'll just talk a little bit about the space as a technical environment. So off you go, Revi. So can you see that okay, Ellen?
It's a little blurry.
Okay, we'll just try and hold. Hopefully no one's getting... Can you see any of that?
I can see broad screens, but I'm not getting the sharp definition. That's
okay,
better,
sure.
yeah.
Okay, well, just stay there, Revi. I think you're probably in situ. All right, well, I'll just talk from back here, and then we can go forward. So if you may... Thankfully, there's a nice person there being a scale for you. So this space is about 2.5 stories high. Everything that's at human height is a touch screen, which we'll talk about in a minute, and we'll go a little closer to them. And there's basically 2 10-meter sections to this. So if there's this left section, and then there is this right section. And that makes up the main kind of guts of the cube, and then there are the single walls, which is what we walked into when we first came into the space. The idea of this space is that it's open from 10 till 4 every day, and that it's open to the public, as well as to students, as well as to researchers. And I think we just lost you on the iPad. I'm just...
Yeah. But your voice is still coming through clearly.
Okay, so we'll just see if we can hook you back up onto, I think you're just calling someone random now, you're calling Rachel. Hang on, sorry everybody. Go with me, do that. Do that. Do that. Okay, I think we're back on. Can you?
Yep.
Well done, and do that. Okay, we're back on. Alrighty, so I thought
We've got a suggestion from one of the folk here that you could get better resolution doing the filming from the iPhone rather than the iPad.
oh, I'll give it a go. Hang on.
Sorry, just a suggestion from the floor here.
Okay, all right, let me try this. Okay, all right. Okay, but can you hear me okay if I'm doing it this way?
Yes.
The problem is now is that I'm standing behind the camera, but maybe that's not an issue.
Okay,
Is that
it is
helping at all?
significantly clearer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll bring the iPad up a bit closer as well and see whether the two signals are helping. Okay, so let's talk about these screens. So, oh, this is great. Now I'm doing it from behind the camera. So, can you see what's going on? So, can you see my fingers on the screen?
Yes.
These screens are actually vision compute screens. So each one has 32 infrared cameras. So it's actually seeing my fingers before I touch the screen. It gives you this illusion that it's a touch screen, but actually it's a vision compute screen. That allows for this really liquid experience of interaction because it's not going through pixel boxes, it's actually going through camera spaces, and the whole lot is activated. So I can put my fingers anywhere and it's picking me up. Within this structure, we have two screens that are talking to one computer. So as soon as we go from the screen I have my fingers on at the moment to this next screen, I just went across a computer network structure. And as you can see here, this is the dividing point. We have fish and creatures that are basically flowing across in the same time and space seamlessly. That was quite a challenge technically to be able to achieve that. However, all of these cool technical, capacities that we've learned. Are you back on? How's that other image looking now from the iPad? Is that okay as well?
Yeah, they're both actually better now. Yeah.
Okay.
Although.
So that's all right.
The phone is still better.
Okay.
Yep, the phone is still better.
Okay, all
we
right.
can
well,
actually
we'll
see the
both.
coral much more clearly.
Okay, so we'll leave it with both. So even though there's a lot of kind of technical smarts going on, what's really important is what happens with all of this tech. It's not really about the tech; it's about what we're doing with it. And as you can sort of see over here, and I'm about to sneak over some four-person shoulder, the opportunity is that you can learn, interact, and learn information about the creatures in this reef. So, for instance, we have someone kindly here just demonstrating how they're connecting onto a fish, and then up comes this information panel, which also has video and images in it. So that's the idea of how people can engage with information in a really kind of visually driven way. So I guess sort of something that's happening here with the cube that is a real sort of important start point and a point of difference from other environments is that obviously it's this digital interactive environment that's at a really large scale and in the public sphere. And just the mere fact that the thing exists means that we're really having to work in new kind of teams with different kind of mindsets involved to create kind of new ideas. And that actually a lot of, the research around, what does success look like has really been, developed live in the circumstance that we have here. And I've just realised there's another presentation happening, so I'm going to just back away from their space slightly. Okay, can you still see that? Okay, I'm sorry, there's another VIP group that just came through. As you can imagine, there's a lot of formal presentations happening in terms of people interested in how the cube might facilitate research capacity, business opportunities, display large data sets or big data, as well as new ways of visualization of information. So that's kind of a lot of the key discussion around what the cube is. Something for me that I think is really interesting about the cube is it kind of changes the idea of how we engage with information. This reef is really quite beautiful and enticing, but actually it's limited in terms of how much information and how much opportunity you have as a user to actually engage and interrogate that information for yourself. There's not this narrative structure involved. It's very much a passive, what I call a passive interactive experience. So as much as it's visually enticing, the depth of information is quite limited. I'll just move around to the other screen, because I'm not sure who those people are. We shouldn't maybe be capturing them all on film. So something that's become a real kind of key agenda is this idea of self-directed discovery as opposed to passive reception of information. So by that I mean passive reception is that you go up to the wall, you click on something, and there's some text, and you read it. Like, nothing's really going on there. There's a very limited amount of there's no self-directed discovery. Whereas with something like this project that we're looking at from my iPhone at the moment, which is called Robot Uni, all of these there are three kind of main narrative zones. They're all supporting the idea of self-directed discovery, where you have to interact with with the information or with the design of the game, in inverted commas, to actually learn and discover things. That idea of self-directed discovery has been really taken across into the way we are now teaching science at QUT. As I mentioned earlier, we have this very kind of porous environment and building, and we have these glass wall teaching labs, and the students are no longer going into mega lecture environments where they sit there and that kind of talk and chalk structure. They are now going into collaborative learning where they work in group sessions, and the lecturer is now the guy by the side as opposed to the man in the front sort of idea. So there's been a real change in how we are trying to facilitate the learning paradigm. So rather than knowledge and information, or rather than information, it's about learning and experience. That's probably a start point. Without getting some feedback on what if or if any of that's interested you, it's difficult for me to keep on talking, although I thought I'm doing quite well. So has anyone got any thoughts or questions, or they're interested in something, or would like me to explain something?
I'll just see, and we'll ask people to come up to the front so that you can actually see them.
Oh, it's just gone a blue screen. I can't see you guys at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm literally talking to myself, which is quite strange.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a picture from what's happening here too. Any questions or comments so far? Could you come up, Donna, please?
Hi, I'm Donna from Walker Library, and
I was just wondering, how often do you actually change the like, say at the moment you've got an aquarium, how often do you plan on changing that, and what other themes have you actually had, if you've had any?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question, and it's been a challenge. So since launching or opening at the beginning of last year, we've had two new projects, one of which is the Robot University, which is the project that we're looking at here, as I said, co-funded with the Australia Council for the Arts. And then we have an upstairs space which is attached to this, and we've had a couple of new projects up on level 5. We are in the process of building another big project to partner up on that internal space with the reef. That project will be launched in August this year, and it's a chemistry wall project. So it's all about chemistry, people discovering how chemistry, is involved in the everyday. There are little kind of there's that self-directed discovery happening through interactive challenges and games, so that people can actually. One of them is launching a rocket and working with solid state and liquid state fuel and mass and velocity, and trying to get your rocket out of the atmosphere. or out of the gravity pool of the planet. So that's happening in August. We have another residency starting in about a fortnight, and they will be producing some new projects. We also have 3 international residencies coming in over the next 12 months as well. The first year, really 2013, was primarily around a lot of the what I call the behind the screens activity. We had a lot. It worked, which was a minor miracle. It was the first. This is the first and the largest kind of distributed network interactive public environment around, and we turned it on in December 2012, and much to our delight and surprise to a degree, but we planned for it to work, and it did work. But we also spent a lot of 2013 just getting systems in place for management of the big object. So now 2014 and 2015 is really about commissioning more projects for the QUT. The QUT's sort of curatorial overview framework is that it's around this idea of science, tech, engineering, and maths, and broadening the demographic of people in the community who are interested in that conversation. We've sort of addition to that acronym, and it's a big pedagogy movement that's coming out of America, which is STEAM, which is science, tech, engineering, art, and maths. And as is perfectly demonstrated by the project that we have in front of us, without animation artists, graphic designers, visual designers, interaction designers, all of whom sit in the kind of arts, the A within the STEAM acronym, you wouldn't have a project. So the QUT is really this sort of, it is the accumulation or the coming together of those different disciplines, which the acronym is known as STEAM, to produce projects on the QUT. And actually, I would almost challenge anyone to tell me something that is outside of the world of science, tech, engineering, and maths. We live in a wholly engineered environment, and science, tech, engineering, and maths are in everything that we do, from the technology of our clothing to the technology of our tech, through to agricultural methodologies of growing commercial crops, etc. So it's an incredibly broad space. Life, STEM is life really, and it's a very broad spectrum, and that's our stomping ground. So over the years we will have a broader and broader suite of projects for people to engage with, and as we get more projects, we'll be able to spin them onto the different zones more frequently. At the moment, we have several projects that we can play on these single walls, like the one that you're looking at the moment. And as I said, we're getting our next big double story projects coming live in August, and then we've got another couple lined up for early 2015. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you very much. Any other questions?
Hi Luby, it's Kathy here. My question is actually about the what's involved in the residency program. Like, what sort of people do you entice to these things, and how do you engage with them to get them to come to the QUT and do stuff with you?
Okay, so we have there's a I guess you may have seen the QUT website. If not, we have a QUT website, and there's a residency page there, which will give you a little bit more in depth. The types of residents that we've enticed, so we had this Australia Council Literature Board residency. They were really brave last year or the year before, when I sort of pitched the idea to them about digital language, which includes the idea of literacy in coding and programming, as much as the literacy in visual language, and all of those being encased in the idea of narrative. They really came on board and just went on an expedition with me around what that might look like. So they just took their lives into their hands and said, we're not really sure what you're talking about, but let's do it. So we had Christy Dina, so again this will be on the website, Christy Dina, who's a transmedia creative. She was our first residency who produced Robot Uni, and she's just a fabulous creative who's really used to working across multiple digital and physical platforms, creating and weaving narrative and stories across many different platforms. And as she said in her blog and in her sort of, written material, it was just a really good start point. Doing a project on the Cube was this whole other ball game. We are just announcing our new 2014 resident for the Literature Board next week. So I'm sorry, but that's all embargo at the moment as to who that person is. However, we have an international residency partnership with the Ars Electronica, who are quite an incredible creative space in Austria. And through that partnership residency, we have a chap called Zach Lieberman coming to the Cube. He is the inventor of a code called Open Frameworks. He is currently the commissioned creative coder for the Barbican Google Commission for 2014, so he's the world's best creative coder, and he's coming later this year on a residency to create a project around the idea of the power of 10, and that kind of, how the power of 10 works as a mathematical concept, but how that can be utilized into a visual environment, and very much inspired by maths and science. Also, we have a partnership with the European Media Arts Network residency, and we have three artists coming in through that. One is a great tangible media artist, and she's working on a project with us around young children learning how to program using big cubes called tangible media. It's called Build the Sound. Again, that's on the website, and you can see what that project is. So that's, we've really sort of taken this. Everything that we do, everything that we're seeking to do, the people that we're engaging with, it's really around, how can they help us make this kind of discussion and this discovery around the digital media and science and tech and engineering and maths really accessible to from 3-year-olds all the way up to 90-year-olds. And we do that through not just the Cube as this object, but the Cube being this inspiration for a site for lots of public programs as well. And everything is really about hands-on, self-directed discovery, collaborative learning, and that runs through all of our programs, all of our workshops. And for me, when we really nail that into our digital projects for the Cube, that's the idea, is that inspiration will roll into our projects as well. And yeah, definitely check out the residency website or the page on the Cube, because that will show you and give you some more in-depth information there. Did that answer the question?
Sorry, yes it did. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from any of our audience members? I'm just asking if there's other people here who've got questions about what they've been seeing so far.
And I'd love to ask a question, which is, has anyone sort of got a comment to make? Any comments will do as well as questions. People's thoughts. We're in uncharted territory here, and making it up as we go along.
We have thoughts coming.
Hey, hello. I'm Justin from Cogra in Sydney, and I guess we're a room full of. Hello. Thanks for the big, impressive demonstration of the aquarium. The barrier reef. I'm sorry. It's cool. Yeah, we're a room full of public librarians, I guess, and one of the things that we couldn't easily do is that kind of that kind of scale where someone can walk up and be just wowed and immersed in something that's just visually impressive and engaging for that reason. But I really like the idea of the space being used on the customer or the student's terms, where they can come in and get what they want from the library or the space, depending on what they're there for and depending on the age group, without having that expensive installed infrastructure. I guess using the space on their own terms for us is kind of providing a social space, and in terms of that self-directed discovery, one of our limitations is things like Wi-Fi. Once we've got, say, 10 or 20 people on, and we'll have 200 people in the library when it's full, in the afternoon, students and stuff, the Wi-Fi kind of slows down, and it's hard to provide a kind of magical do what you want space beyond the actual physical space. Do you have any thoughts on that in your environment where you do have a lot of students and a lot of smartphones and things in the room?
I'm going to say the really annoying thing, which is not relevant to the real world, which is boost up the Wi-Fi. You know, that's you know, that's the foundation upon which all of these students. And I was just trying to sort of give you a bit of a, you know, a show. I'm sort of trying to show you around so you can see the many students that are here, and you know, and that the load that our system has to take. I guess if you're going to invest in anything in terms of how do we enable what you're looking at through my phone at the moment, which is these, you know, multiple ways in which people are engaging. So you can see, you know, there's people just sort of doing projects together. This is a great image here. Those TVs that you can see, or the screens you can see in the background, you can just hook your computer into that. That's a touch screen as well, so they could just chuck one of their computers into the plug and it would come up on the big screen for them. You know, so there's lots of different, you can see directly in front of me and down a bit further, there's some people, you know, in a much more casual sort of circumstance. I mean, I don't think they're necessarily working together, but they're hanging out together. To make this happen, you need a really, really beefy Wi-Fi system and Ethernet. You know, they will happily pick up a Ethernet cable from the floor and chuck it into their computer. You know, it doesn't need to be just Wi-Fi. You can use the hardwire as well as the Wi-Fi systems. That's probably not that sounds like the practical answer, but I know that that's a resource issue, not a imagination issue. In terms of how else do you, you know, facilitate, you know, letting students come in or letting everybody come in and do whatever they want to do. A lot of our public programming, and something that you know, we're very conscious of, because this is not a cheap bit of equipment, and I hope it never happens, but maybe one day we run out of money to be able to afford to keep the thing up and running. But all of the public programming, you know, if all of that is attached, you know, essentially to the cube, if the cube falls over, all of that would fall over. So we've been really mindful in not connecting them too physically to each other. So our public programs, we have a partnership with Lego Education, we have another one with Weaverbots, and we really do a lot of Megatronics-based hands-on collaborative learning workshops that don't require the internet. I mean, they require computers because there's like little bits of coding and some big bits of coding, but we're just trying to, you know, facilitate clubs and, you know, community hubs that are based around ideas such as coding and programming, robotics, girls and STEAM, or STEAM girls as we call it. What else have we got going on? Games and gaming. You know, we're sort of you know, we're kind of making these hubs that are inspired by us having the cube, but then are not reliant on us having the cube, and really sort of taking on the essence of what the cube represents, which is this STEAM discourse, you know, and creativity in the 21st century. I don't know if that really helped answer your question, but hopefully that might have given you a few kind of pointers around how we're trying to safeguard ourselves against, you know, the really expensive infrastructure stuff going down one day. Hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you, yes. And at that point I'd like to say it's a good thing it's called the cube and not the egg, because an egg could fall over easier than a cube, and maybe a cube can't fall over. I don't know if that...
Except, but I'm not sure if
the joke's 5 minutes old.
Noticed it's only half a cube.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, hi, Catherine, Parramatta Library. I just wanted to ask you about how accessible you are for children's school groups. Do you have programs that within primary schools or high schools specifically, for that group to
Yes.
come into the space?
Yep. Okay, so we've got several streams. We have something called the STEM School STEM School Strategy. So that is a funded program that is focused on years 9 to 12. We currently have it funded so the schools do not have to pay a cost to come here other than probably the coach to get here, but all of the costs once they're here are covered in terms of facilitators. That project or that STEM school strategy is massive. We have certainly, it's amazing there's not a group of students somewhere actually at the moment in the school uniform. So that's been incredibly successful, especially with the change of curriculums from state to national. The first ones to go into the national curriculum have been around the sciences and the tech curriculum. So we've really helped support the teaching staff through for them being able to access the kind of workshops and activities that we have here. Again, if you go to the website, there's an education tab, and that will get you onto some of the stuff that we have on offer for schools. In terms of what I call, students out of school uniform, and that includes the holidays, the weekends, and also the age group that isn't covered in that STEM school program, which is years 8 and below or 9 and below. We have a whole bunch of other programs that they can engage with as well. More of that is delivered into the weekends and holidays because it's really hard for that age group to even get out of school. So rather than trying, I don't know what the situation is in New South Wales, but in Queensland, it's nigh impossible to get the students at those kind of age ranges out of school. However, we do a lot with the teachers in promoting the programs to their students. We also do a lot of professional development for teachers, and all of our workshops are facilitated by our education students here at QUT. So there's a whole bunch of STEM pre-service teachers who are training and delivering the program here at QUT, and then when they actually go out into the schools, they're taking that knowledge with them. So that's been great. So we're trying to activate our own little education revolution through educating the next generation of educators. It's going so well that we now have there's a whole bunch of students from the education faculty who are helping us now develop workshops, and we have a great little partnership that's happening with a fabulous little robot called the Weaverbot, and we are their little R&D unit developing projects, teaching materials and pedagogy around programming for young children, and we're talking really young children, how they can learn to program using these kind of young children robots. So there's a whole bundle of stuff that's going on. We're also, as a culture here in QUT precincts, we're into open source hardware, software and knowledge. So everything that we're doing, we are really happy to share. We're delivering a lot of our workshops now into the Brisbane City Council's library network. And with all the Weaverbot information, all of that will be going onto all of our websites so other people can download the projects and the material and do the workshops and have fun in their own local communities.
Oh, fantastic. I wish we had one in New South Wales. Something like your facility. But thank you.
Yeah, well, you don't need a cube, actually. The cube's just a big shiny object. All of the really great stuff is what's been inspired by the cube. So, we'd be really happy to chat more with anybody in New South Wales and in the system who's, wanting to get involved and in any of the public programming stuff and the workshops that we're doing, because they're completely portable and you don't need a big cube for them.
Yeah, true. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Hi, it's Ellen back. But I don't know if people were noticing that some of the images that were being shown were of local geography in the area. So, yes, you mightn't get
I can take you back to
dozens of these big screens, but there is a kind of like a fairly strong local studies possibility for the proactive discovery of information.
Yep,
and
absolutely. Yep, there's all sorts of things. And I mean,
yes,
as I
because
said, we are really in this kind of uncharted territories, and we're, what we're really discovering is that, every time we do one thing, we discover there are 5,000 other possibilities that we hadn't kind of accounted for. So what you can see just happening here is this person's looking at images from when we had the floods. And so there's a collection. This is all community collected content. So it's about, you can see videos playing, you can see still images, you can see the map of the area where everything happened. And so this kind of idea of geolocated data, which is a massive movement in gaining, momentum hugely, especially through the open source, open data movement of the federal and state governments, which is all geolocated data. This is a really interesting platform for that information to start to come down onto. So yeah, we've got a lot of ideas around kind of community engagement projects that could land into this platform really nicely.
Yeah, it looks really nice, and although public libraries may not be able to get the suite of screens so that they've got their local river or their local mountains going through it, even one screen would be a possibility for showing some of this data, or thinking about how it can be available on websites. So I think sometimes we'd all like a cube, but it's looking at alternatives and how the ideas from the cube can be applied.
Yeah, and if it makes you feel better, you probably wouldn't all want a cube. It's a big beastie. She's very temperamental. She has 7 people babysitting her. We have a production team of 7 people, 2 of whom are AV techs. I can't sort of emphasize enough, and I don't think it's surprising, but I think it's human nature that, someone needs to have the big shiny object to kick off the conversation, and I'm lucky that I get to have the big shiny object. But the scale of the thing and what we're doing with it, it's about what the essence of that is, which is this STEAM thing, which is self-directed learning or discovery, collaborative learning, hubs that are engagement hubs that are generated around ideas, and ideas that are kind of within the STEAM space, such as the robotics, the coding, computing, programming, electronics, just that whole area. And again, our events page has a whole bunch of archive now where you can have a look. We're using Makey, Little Bits, Arduino, Bear Connect, all sorts of really great tool sets to facilitate the conversation and to really help people, get comfortable with STEAM in effect, which is what's really, that's kind of the 21st century reality. If you had just one of these screens, you can do some really interesting things. And in fact, apps for mobile apps are a great place for both engaging and connecting to information, especially geolocated information. There's a fabulous project that we're launching in June, which is called Long Time No See, and it has an app attached to it where you walk, and it's about seeing your environment consciously and doing it, consciously and actively on a walk. And then all of that information gets loaded up to both a website and to the cube, but also other people can go on your walk. So they can then go out in the physical world and see what you saw and respond to that. So it's really just around embracing the idea of digital media and STEAM more so than embracing the expensive hardware.
Any questions or comments people would like to make about that? Because I think that's a really valuable point, because it really is kind of going, there's a whole lot of really great local stuff that you can do. Seeing the cube is a good inspiration. Looking at your website gives some critical ideas, but there are ways people can take, I suppose, the information elements back and look at it as how they are engaging in their information services in their own library and viewing it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's that kind of open source idea, open everything, try and have an open culture, and try, for us, it's about not the experts putting the information up, but the community putting the information up. Maybe the experts, check it for accuracy. Our whole chemistry project that we're doing and we'll be launching in Science Week, that content's been generated through students. So it's really about the community putting their knowledge and information up, which then gets legitimised through the experts rather than the experts telling everybody what's what. It's this kind of flip over. Everything's almost like a flip over. We're going away from, you know, an expert in a talk and chalk scenario where there's a lecture or a presentation. We really do, in my program, public program, we do very little of that. It's really around minds-on, hands-on experiences. So, you know, you fill out the app, you build the robot, you work out the programming, and we are here to support you do that, as opposed to you come and listen to someone tell you how something is or what something is. It's just a kind of, it's a flip over of attitude in some respects.
Okay, any comments or questions from the floor? Okay, if you could, just got one coming down from towards the back of the room. Won't be long.
Just go for number one.
Hello, my name's Craig. Sorry if this is a bit of repetition because I think you've already addressed this in some part. But I was just thinking, in libraries, we've often been very good when it comes to students with the humanities. We've got a very strong tradition of helping kids with their English and history and legal studies and society and culture. And we often get a lot of those student groups coming into our libraries. But it doesn't seem to be quite the same for science, technology, engineering and maths. We don't we'll certainly here at the State Library we get a lot of student groups, but it's all entirely history, society, culture and legal studies. Do you have any advice for people in the library sector of what sort of programs or what approaches that students of these particular areas, you know, maths, science, ways to reach to them, that advice that you can give for us?
Okay, so, well, one of my favourite terms is this idea of digital literacy. And here comes a big general sweeping comment, so that's important that, you know, that understood within that kind of preface. But, you know, to an extent, the idea of digital literacy has been around, can people build websites? Do they know how to generate content? Generating content within, you know, digital frameworks such as apps and websites, and the idea that stuff exists on a screen and on the web usually, but this idea that it's in that digital environment. I've kind of expanded the idea of digital literacy to, you know, being able to code. Code is a language, and it's a literacy, you know, it's a literacy. So we're really kind of pushing the idea of what digital literacy is to include coding, programming, being able to build circuits. So, you know, electronic literacy, mathematical literacy really comes into coding. So we really sort of expanded the idea of what literacy is and taken this idea of digital literacy off of the screens as a delivery point, and are far more interested in the space where it collides with the physical, such as robotics. You know, you do a lot of coding, you have to code them, which is a digital interface, and then suddenly this physical object is often doing things in the physical world. So expanding the idea of what literacy is a great start point, and also I imagine it's a big challenge as well to get the students, and that means you've got to get those teachers, you know, educated in terms of what it is you can offer them. We really started off with holiday programs, and then the kids went back to the schools and started telling their teachers about this great stuff that they've been doing. There's a couple of big events which are really worth looking into as well. One of those is called First Lego League, and that's a great way of connecting the STEM curriculum sector into such as, you know, like a library space, into the literacy space. That's been something that we've used quite intelligently and successfully in terms of bringing a whole range of kids, parents, and eventually teachers who kind of, you know, get drawn in by this interest that the parents go back and report to them. That's sort of been a real methodology that we've used. So I would say it's two things: expand the idea of literacy, and start with the kids, and eventually the parents and the teachers come along too. Did that help at all?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've got people a bit stunned with, yes, there's so much information to process and such amazing images that we're seeing from the cube. Yeah, thank you so much for the explanation this afternoon and for the amazing visuals. It's been great.
Our absolute pleasure. We're here to play, collaborate, and work with people all over. This is not about QUT, it's not about Brisbane, it's about, supporting Australia as a family of, connected spaces, engaging with communities in new ways. So we would be really happy to chat with anyone, share anything, collaborate, work across two spaces simultaneously through digital networks. We're up for all sorts of fun. So if anybody's interested, please just contact us.
I actually expect you will be getting a few people contacting you with that very generous offer. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking Luby and Revi.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.